Hi everyone, thank you for taking the time to watch this video. Today I want to kind of talk to you about net neutrality and what that means. So net neutrality in the telecom industry is kind of a hotly debated topic, both from the consumer standpoint and the corporate standpoint. So net neutrality is what we mean when we talk about kind of the freedom of the internet and how certain kinds of content and speeds can be controlled. So with that in mind, it's kind of a common assumption to think that net neutrality is a relatively new thing, since the internet itself is only 30 years old. Believe it or not, net neutrality actually got its roots back in 1934, when President Roosevelt at the time helped to pass the Communications Act. Now, in Title II of the Communications Act of 1934, every company that provided telephone service was classified as a common carrier. Now, basically what that means is, if you pay for telephone service and you make a phone call, your phone call would be treated by your phone provider with the same priority as any other phone call made by any other customer. So it didn't matter if you were calling the hospital to check on your family, or if you were calling your best friend to try to go get a drink after work. The phone company had to treat that phone call with the same priority and the same care. The idea behind this was to prevent people from paying more to a phone company to give them better service. They wanted to treat everybody equally. You pay for the phone service, you get treated the same as everybody else regardless. Now, in an article written by Jeremy Brooks of The Ohio State University, he kind of outlines what happened more recently in 2002. The internet had been around for a while at this point, and cable internet was the new thing. So the Federal Communications Commission, the FCC, which is the government entity that tries to regulate all of this, they decided that cable modems would be classified as information services rather than common carrier services like telephones were made back in 1934. So with cable modems being made information services, they weren't held to these same standards of common carriers. Different kinds of traffic could be given different priority. A customer who's paying for the slow internet package might not get the same priority as the customer with the fast internet package. Now, at the time, it wasn't a huge deal. A lot of people used the internet, but they didn't use it to the extent that we use it today. Video chat wasn't a thing. It was basically email and web browsing, which isn't super taxing on an internet network. So it just kind of started moving the ball. But right after that happened, one of the larger corporations that provided internet, Comcast, began to stop their customers from using certain websites. In this case, it was what are called peer-to-peer websites, like BitTorrent. Now, granted, most of the traffic through these websites was illegal. It was people borrowing content and copying it from somebody else who had bought it. LimeWire a few years ago. The same concept. So Comcast was essentially stopping most of their customers from doing something illegal, but we were afraid it would set a precedent, that Comcast could then say, well, we don't like that you're using this website, so we're going to stop it altogether. So it started this long, drawn-out fight that actually ended up lasting for about 2 years. Now, in September of 2013, PC World magazine ended up publishing another article where they kind of explained what happened. Now, in February of 2004, that's what this article explains, the FCC went into a long debate, and they decided that there are 4 freedoms that every user of the internet is allowed. The freedom to access content, the freedom to use applications, the freedom to attach personal devices, and the freedom to the information of their service plan. Now, the freedom to access content is pretty simple. You can use video, you can use email, you can use web chatting, whatever. You get access to all of your legal content. You also get the freedom to use whatever applications you wish. That could be something like the browser you prefer for the internet, or more modern, Netflix versus Hulu type of thing. The freedom to attach personal devices is you get to connect to your internet service whatever you want, as long as it's legally yours. So it doesn't matter if you have 100 cell phones or none. You get to connect them to your personal network. And the last one is the freedom to service plan information, which is basically what forces the corporation or the internet provider that you're buying your service from to give you all the information you could ever need about what you're paying for. Now, this calmed things down a little bit, but a few years later, it got picked back up again. Now, in March of 2006, Greg Sterling of the Search Engine Journal wrote an article right after Ed Whitacre, he was the CEO of Southwestern Bell Corporation at the time. Ed Whitacre kind of started making waves with net neutrality again. It got brought up that big corporations weren't going to go down and let net neutrality happen without a fight. Now remember, net neutrality in a sense is forcing everybody to treat all traffic on the internet the exact same. So Ed Whitacre kind of explained it like this. Essentially, your big corporations like Comcast, AT&T, even Verizon, they're the ones who own, operate, and maintain the network infrastructure that allows the internet to operate and exist. Without those big corporations, there would be no way for us to communicate with people on other networks. They're essentially what makes the world go round, if you want to break it down that far. So Ed Whitacre, again, who was the CEO of Southwestern Bell, which is now AT&T, he tried to explain it like, look, I'm giving this service to my customers and they're paying for it, which is great. But these other companies like Netflix, Hulu, Google, Vonage, they're providing services on top of the internet, right? You know, Vonage is the phone service, Google was the search engine, and then Netflix provides video over the top. So Ed Whitacre explained that those companies are just paying for their internet service. They're not paying the corporations to maintain that pipe like they should be. The internet's like that giant pipe that the data goes through, right? So Ed Whitacre explained that these corporations were essentially getting to use the pipe, the access to the internet, for free. But Comcast, AT&T, Verizon, all those companies were still being forced to maintain it, and now they were starting to get losses on their investment into the infrastructure because all of a sudden there's so much data they're starting to have to upgrade. So this kicked the debate back into full gear. Now, a few years later, in March of 2015, Ars Technica wrote another article, and this one was on AT&T again. And this one was about the wireless data plans for the cell phones. And it kind of started with the same thing. AT&T was throttling users, controlling what types of traffic they could and could not have on their cell phone once a certain point had been hit on their bandwidth. And this flung the FCC back into another debate because at this point it wasn't just content that was being controlled, but it was speed and latency and priority. So all in all, this huge, massive debate on net neutrality can be broken down into a few different things. One, it's trying to decide whether or not traffic should be treated all the same or if it's allowed to be prioritized. Prioritizing traffic can be a good thing. Video traffic, for example, uses a lot more bandwidth than email traffic. So giving a service provider the latitude to prioritize those can actually provide better service to the customer. But on the flip side, it also opens up those corporations to be able to say, okay, well, if you want more priority, you have to pay me more. And with the most recent change, the massive change in the political landscape, which is vastly different from the last 8 years, we could see the net neutrality debate have another flare-up. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens over the next few years. Well, thank you for taking the time to listen to this. I hope you all have a great week.